So basically, I go onto Twitter, X, just moments ago. It's about 7:10 p.m. in the evening right now, Pacific time. And of course, it's the last day of June, June 30th, Sunday. But anyway, I go on there, and one of the first things that pops up is about the whole Archie Comics publication, ACP, Archie Comics publication, Ken Penders lawsuit by a Twitter user by the name of Nicole the Links, basically posing as Nicole, from the comics. And then underneath it, I see from Sally For All, another Twitter user, and pretty much originally known as RK, and we all know who RK is, said that the Archie comics, the Archie SONIC comics, are officially going to get reprinted. And I read this, and I was like, really? They're going to get reprinted. Now, the further I read about it, the more I was like, you got my attention, because one thing we've complained about with IDW, or hoped for, not just complained, but hoped for with IDW, is that they would reprint the Archie SONIC comics just like they did the Archie TMNT books. But we haven't got no real, definitive answer or anything, no real definitive answer. So, I was wondering, okay, what is this about, right? What's going on? And Penders actually was, and this was actually what Sally For All, RK, had retweeted, was something from Penders himself. See, Penders basically stated that they are going to get reprinted, but under a different label. And he's not going to refer to them as Archie. They're just going to be the SONIC comics, I guess, or something. I don't know. But yeah, apparently they're going to get reprinted. Okay, so I'm just looking it up and everything. But basically, according to Sally For All on the Twitter page, they said it's official. Archie SONIC comics are being reprinted. This is a major victory for Archie SONIC fans. And then they state, regardless of who is spearheading this ambitious endeavor, it means these comics will be physically preserved for everyone to enjoy in high quality collectible volumes. Now, he quoted something that Penders put out yesterday. Penders put this out yesterday on June 29th. He said, and this is Ken Penders, he said, all Archie SONIC material will henceforth be published under the banner Floating Island Productions Mobian Line. I myself will no longer refer to the material as Archie SONIC. When I refer to the Mobian Line, people will know what I mean. Full steam ahead, people. Now this got basically got a lot of people talking, and Penders basically went on. It looks like, Penders basically went on to explain, I guess, why this is happening. This is what Penders said, and I quote. This is all from yesterday, June 29th. This is what he says, and I quote. For the people who want to see SEGA see me into oblivion, that's not going to happen, and here's why. And he gives 7 reasons. First reason, there's no reason for me to sue anyone at this time, so I'm not the one who's going to carry that. I'm not the one who's going to carry the burden of proof. Let me reread that. This is the first reason. He says, there's no reason for me to sue anyone at this time, so I'm not the one who's going to carry the burden of proof. And again, this is examples he's putting down there for, as he put it, for people who want to see SEGA see him into oblivion and why it's not going to happen. Again, the number one reason, there's no reason for him to sue anyone at this time, so he's not the one who's going to carry the burden of proof. Secondly, he states, and I quote, lawyers cost money, and it was previously established in court that SEGA expected Archie to cover all legal costs. It's why Archie settled without SEGA's involvement, as they didn't want them in the room during those talks. He continues on. He says, lawyers cost money, lots of it. Disney doesn't take any threat of lawsuit seriously unless the other party engages lawyers who actually file a lawsuit with the cost. Number 4. The party who files first bears the burden of proof. When I filed my countersuit against Archie, the burden of proof rested on me to back up my claims, which I did, which is why Archie decided to settle instead of going through a court battle decided by a jury. Next up, number 5. For SEGA to file a lawsuit against me, the burden of proof of their claims is on them. I've already been to court, so this isn't unknown territory for me. I know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. Number 6. Even if SEGA were to file a lawsuit, there's only one possible outcome given the circumstances: settlement. The judge assigned the case has more important things to do and would encourage both parties, which is what happened between Archie and I. Let me reread that. This is the sixth reason. He says, even if SEGA were to file a lawsuit, there's only one possible outcome given the circumstances: settlement. The judge assigned the case has more important things to do and would encourage both parties to settle, which is what happened between Archie and I. Continuing, and this is the 7th and final part. Oh, not more. He's got more. He's got more here. So, okay. This 7. He says, number 7. The settlement would essentially amount to SEGA and I coming to an agreement which they would recognize my right to reprint the entire Archie SONIC series in exchange for a licensing fee to be negotiated. Number 8. Therefore, it's pointless to engage lawyers in a lawsuit that's only going to result in a settlement if it's not known out of court beforehand. My lawyers have already been to this rodeo and SEGA knows it. They also know how to negotiate. Sorry to disappoint the haters. And let me see if he's continuing on with anything else. No, he's not. But yeah, he's basically saying that he's going to do it. He's going to reprint the Archie SONIC comics. And honestly, for anybody that's curious as to how is he able to do this, well, in his own way, he just explained it. He just explained it, that basically, even if SEGA was to come after him, the only logical course would be lawsuit. Well, not lawsuit, but a settlement. If SEGA was to go after him with a lawsuit, the only logical thing would be a settlement. Now, look, I've already talked about the fact that he's taking a big risk with reprinting the Lawler Sue Chronicles, but mostly the Mobius 25 years later prelude to that whole storyline he's working on. He's taking a major risk on that. There's no doubt. Now, he's considering taking an even bigger, more riskier risk with, going out and saying, hey, I'm going to, reprint under Floating Island Productions, Mobian Line, the entire Archie SONIC series. Now, let's say he does succeed. Let's say he does succeed without an issue. What are we going to get? Are we going to get just his stories? Is that all we're going to get? Are we going to get a majority of them being nothing more than Knuckles reprints? Is that what we're going to get? Are we going to get all of his stories that he started from issue 11 and onwards? Or is he working it out to where he's been in discussions, and it sounds like he's going to try to talk to the other artists and writers on the book outside of himself to see if they're okay with him reprinting their stories in these collectible volumes. Now, if he does succeed, that's great, but there is a catch. One of the people he has to talk to is Ian Flynn. Ian Flynn, technically, even though he's kind of a freelance writer, but he's the head writer, sort of IDW Sonic, and part of the Sonic team, the Inner Circle Sonic team for Sega of America or Japan, whatever. One of the people he has to talk to get the consent to republish the stories is Ian Flynn. And Ian, like I said, is in that monopoly, if you will, tied to Sega. So he needs to kind of really consider, okay, do I want to include Ian's stories? Do I want to include Ian's stories, along with this, knowing that if he does it, it's going to get word back to Sega possibly. So he's got to be careful with what he does. He's got to be careful with his approach, if he wants to try to get this off the ground without an issue. Now, I know some people might say, well, maybe he won't have an issue at all because Sega's more focused on, the Sonic, game characters and, continuity of this generation than the Archie generation, the Archie Satayam generation. And that's probably true. That's probably indeed true. But, here's the thing. Even if that's the case, he's still taking a major risk. Like I said, when I talked about him wanting to reprint, the Mobius 25 Years Later story that he did in the comics to tie into his Lala Sue Chronicle story, I said he's taking a major risk. He's planning, as of right now, he's still planning next month, which starts tomorrow. July starts tomorrow. He's still planning on going to San Diego Comic-Con and selling those issues or selling those reprints. He's taking a big risk, just doing that. He's taking a big risk just doing that. And like I said, this is an even bigger risk. This is an even bigger, chance he's taking. And you know what? He might be able to get away with doing the reprints for Mobius 25 Years Later as part of the Lala Sue Chronicles. But here's the thing. He might be able to get away with that, but trying to reprint Archie SONIC, even under a different publication line, Floating Island, Publications, and calling it the Mobian Line, that's a different story. That's a different story. Because, again, he might be able to get away with the Lala Sue deal and the Mobius 25 Years Later situation there, but when he starts contacting all these writers and artists, which include Ian Flynn, that's a risk he's got to really, really think about. That's a risk he's got to say out loud to himself, do I really want to ask this guy if I can reprint his stories as part of the collection, knowing that he has ties to SEGA? He's got to really, really consider it, folks. He's really got to consider it, because if he doesn't consider what he's about to do, if he doesn't go out and say, hey, I want to, if he doesn't, consider what he's going to do and go out and, at least, maybe even PM Ian Flynn, PM him, email him, whatever, and say, Ian, I know we've had our differences, but I want to preserve your stories that you did for the Sonic comics by Archie, along with mine and Carl and everybody else's. Is it okay if I do that? And Ian might be fine with it, as long as he probably gets a share of it, probably gets a share of the cut. Or Ian might be like, look, man, I don't want you. Ian might be like, look, I understand what you're doing, but you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk, because even if you publish this under, and this is what I'm thinking Ian could tell him. Ian could probably say either, yay, go ahead, do it, as long as I get a share. Or he can say no and basically explain to him that, hey, Ken, I get what you're doing, and I appreciate that, being a fan myself at one point. But what you're doing is you're taking a major, major risk, on yourself and, on yourself financially and reputationally. You're taking a major, major risk. And it's a risk that I would recommend you not take. And maybe that'll be Ian's way of saying, hey, I can't let you do that. I can't let you use my stories. I don't want to. Ian might, because Ian might be like, look, I don't want to be tied to that. I don't want to get in trouble myself. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what Ken does. Trying to think about what to say here, because again, this is just a situation to where it's just mind-boggling that we're in an age where I guess it's been a decade, been over a decade since the whole thing happened, that we're in an age where a decade later, and especially years, years late, not even years later, but years after, not even that many years after, we find out maybe Ken is lying or telling the truth and whatever. It's just amazing to know that, he's willing to go this far to take this chance. I mean, let me ask you guys listening and watching, would you take this chance that he's taking? Would you, if you were in his shoes, if you were in his shoes and you did everything you could to gain the rights to your creation, what you would say your creation, stories and everything, would you take the risk about a decade later and say, hey, I'm going to not only reprint the stories of Mobius Years Later that I did for the Archie comics to be part of my Lala Sue Chronicles project, but I'm also going to start doing the same thing for the entire comic book. Would you take that risk, knowing that that's going to be more of a target, more of a, hey, blip on the radar, when it comes to SEGA taking notice? Or would you be like, look, I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm going to see what IDW does first. Because honestly, if I was in Ken's shoes, I would not do it. I wouldn't. I would not take that chance. And I'd be like, look, I'm just going to leave it be, and I'll see what IDW does. And that's it. That's all I would do. I would not take the chance. Because again, he's taking a chance right now with the Lawless Sue Chronicles situation and the reprint of Mobius years later in that. But it's an even bigger risk. Bigger target he's painting on himself by doing this. But we'll see what happens. Maybe there'll be a win-win. We'll have to see. And I do apologize for that notification vibration you heard. We'll have to see, though. Maybe it's going to be a win-win. We don't know. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below. Live chat if you haven't already in the live chat during the premiere. Check out my Teespring store. Link is in the description. Check out my other outlets to find my content at as well. But give me your thoughts, guys. What are your thoughts on all this? How do you feel? Are you happy that at least that of all people, Ken Penders wants to try to bring the comics back and preserve them? Or do you think maybe he's taking too much of a risk, in the long run when it comes to that? Let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are. And until then, talk to you later.